I didn't realize my marriage was over the day I signed the pension rollover forms. It was a crisp autumn morning in our modest suburban home in Cleveland, Ohio. The kitchen smelled of fresh coffee brewing in the old Mr. Coffee machine we'd had since our wedding day. Sunlight filtered through the lace curtains Laura had picked out years ago, casting delicate patterns on the Formica countertop. I sat there in my worn flannel shirt, pen in hand, staring at the stack of papers that represented the culmination of my life's labor. 32 years. That's how long I'd been climbing into elevator shafts, grease under my fingernails, sweat soaking my back. Early morning starting at 5 a.m., bad coffee from thermos flasks that never quite hit the spot, and knees that ached like hell after hauling tools up ladders. I'd started as an apprentice right out of high school, fixing jammed doors and faulty cables in downtown high-rises. Over the decades, I'd become the go-to guy for the tough jobs, the ones where passengers were trapped mid-floor, hearts pounding, voices echoing through the intercom. Stay calm, I'd say, my voice steady as I pried open panels and rerouted wires. I've got this under control. And I always did. Elevators were predictable if you understood their hidden systems. Pulleys, counterweights, safety brakes. Life, I thought, worked the same way. Maintain it, and it holds. Laura stood behind me that morning, her hand warm on my shoulder, fingers gently massaging the tension away. She was still beautiful at 55, with her auburn hair tied back in a neat ponytail and those sharp green eyes that always seemed to see more than I did. We'd met in our 20s at a community college night class. She was studying accounting, I was brushing up on electrical engineering. She had this quiet confidence, a way of making complex things simple. Numbers don't lie, she'd say with a smile. I fell for her practicality, her ambition. She handled our finances from the start, balancing checkbooks, investing in mutual funds, planning for the future. It freed me up to focus on my work, on being the provider. Trust me, she said now, leaning down to kiss the top of my head. This is better for us. Consolidating into a self-directed IRA gives us flexibility. We can chase higher returns, make the money work harder for our retirement dreams, that cabin by the lake, remember? I trusted her. That was my mistake. I scrawled my signature across the dotted lines, the pen scratching like a distant warning. The forms were dense with legalese, rollover authorizations, beneficiary designations, power of attorney clauses. I skimmed them, relying on her explanations. Why question it? We'd been married 28 years. Through job layoffs, her mother's long illness, our son Jake's rocky teenage years, we'd weathered it all. Or so I believed. The first crack appeared quietly, like a hairline fracture in a steel beam. It was a few weeks later, on a rainy Tuesday evening. I came home from a grueling shift, 12 hours fixing a freight elevator in an old warehouse, to find Laura sorting mail at the dining table. A letter addressed to me lay open beside her. She glanced up, her smile a touch too quick. Junk mail, she said, crumpling it and tossing it into the recycling bin. Nothing important. But something nagged at me. Later that night, after she'd gone to bed, I fished it out. The envelope bore the logo of my pension administrator, the one I'd contributed to faithfully through my union. Unfolding it, I read, "Confirmation of transfer. Your pension funds have been successfully rolled over to the designated self-directed account." Transferred where? To what? My stomach tightened. The amount listed was staggering, over $450,000, the nest egg I'd built brick by brick. That night, I couldn't sleep. The house creaked in the wind, and my mind raced. I slipped downstairs to the den, fired up our ancient desktop computer, and tried logging into the new account Laura had set up. Invalid password. I tried variations, our anniversary, Jake's birthday, her maiden name. Nothing. The next morning over breakfast, I mentioned it casually. "Hey, "Hon, I need the login for that IRA thing." She paused mid-sip of coffee, her eyes flickering. "Oh, I updated it for security reasons. Better safe than sorry with hackers these days. I'll email it to you later." She never did. Days turned into weeks, excuses piling up. "I forgot, work's been crazy, let's do it together this weekend." 2 weeks later, she dropped the bomb. We were in the living room, the TV droning some mindless sitcom in the background. She sat on the edge of the couch, hands clasped, avoiding my gaze. "Tom, I need space," she said, her voice steady but distant. "We've grown apart. I think we should separate." People always say that, as if distance happens by accident, like drifting continents. But marriages don't erode overnight, it's a series of tiny choices, hidden faults building pressure until the whole structure gives. I stared at her, numb. What? After all this time? Why now? She shrugged, her expression unreadable. I need to find myself. It's not you, it's us. Clichés, all of it. She packed a suitcase that night and left for a friend's place, promising to sort things out amicably. The house felt emptier than ever, the silence pressing in like the walls of a stalled elevator. The truth emerged during mediation, a sterile process in a downtown office with fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. Our mediator, Ms. Evelyn Grant, was a soft-spoken woman in her 60s with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses and a knack for diffusing tension. Laura sat across from me, flanked by her lawyer, a slick young guy in a tailored suit. My own attorney, an old friend from the union named Mike, had warned me, divorces get ugly when money's involved. A mess. Grant cleared her throat and slid a thick document across the polished table. "Mr. Harris, according to these financial records, your pension funds, approximately $452,000, were transferred into an investment account solely in Mrs. Harris's name 3 months ago. This was done via the rollover you authorized, but the final beneficiary designation lists only her." The room spun. Laura didn't look at me, she studied her perfectly manicured nails, picking at a non-existent chip. "That's theft," I said, my voice sounding strange, detached, like it belonged to someone else in the room. My hands trembled as I gripped the paper. "It was marital property," Laura replied calmly, her tone rehearsed. "We discussed it. And anyway, the account lost money in some investments. There's nothing left to steal." She met my eyes then, a flicker of defiance. Nothing to steal. 32 years evaporated in bad bets? Mike leaned in, his voice low and practiced at delivering bad news. "Tom, because you signed those rollover forms and granted her power of attorney back in 18, remember, during your knee surgery scare, your legal options are limited. We could fight it in court, but it'd be expensive, drawn out, uncertain. Judges often see these as shared assets in long marriages." I nodded, but inside, something hardened. Laura moved out 2 days later, leaving her house keys on the counter beside a half-empty bottle of her favorite Chardonnay. She took the good china, the photo albums, Jake's childhood artwork, everything that mattered, or so she thought. Jake, now 25 and living in Chicago with his own family, called me that night. "Dad, what the hell happened? Mom says it's mutual." "Son, it's complicated," I said, not wanting to poison him against her. But the quiet house amplified my thoughts. The refrigerator hummed like a mocking companion, and I felt something settle in my chest. Not rage, not yet. Something colder, more calculated. An understanding. I'd spent my life diagnosing broken systems, tracing wires to find the short circuit. Laura had assumed I was too simple, too trusting to notice the fault lines in our own setup. She was wrong. Revenge didn't arrive as a grand, cinematic plan with dramatic music swelling in the background. It crept in as curiosity, a quiet itch to understand. I started small. The next day, I requested copies of everything from the pension administrator and the brokerage firm, account statements, transfer confirmations, emails, transaction logs. They arrived in a thick envelope a week later, pages upon pages of financial jargon. I spread them out on the kitchen table, under the same light where I'd signed my trust away. I read them like elevator schematics, mapping the flow of money. Patterns emerged from the chaos. Laura hadn't just moved the funds, she'd chased high returns aggressively, like a gambler doubling down. High-yield bonds, speculative stocks in volatile tech startups, private placements in real estate ventures that screamed, too good to be true. She'd timed it perfectly. The rollover happened just before she asked for separation, giving her control during the marital property window. But she'd cut corners in her haste. Buried in the fine print of one statement, I found a compliance notice from the brokerage. The account had exceeded risk thresholds mandated for retirement funds under IRS regulations. There were requirements, detailed disclosures, suitability assessments, client acknowledgments, that hadn't been properly completed. And then, the smoking gun, on a digital form authorizing a particularly risky investment in a cryptocurrency fund, my electronic signature appeared. But I hadn't signed it. The timestamp showed it was done from her laptop IP address, while I was on a job site. Forgery. That was interesting. My heart raced as I stared at the screen, the pixels blurring slightly. Power of attorney gave her broad authority, but forging signatures crossed into fraud territory. I didn't call Mike right away. Instead, I brewed a pot of strong coffee and called the brokerage's compliance department from my old landline phone. A polite but wary voice answered. Compliance hotline, this is Sarah speaking. How can I assist? I'm Tom Harris, I said, keeping my tone even, professional, like calming a trapped passenger. I'm concerned about some irregularities in an account tied to my former pension rollover. There seem to be unauthorized signatures and investments that don't align with my risk profile. Sarah asked for details, and I provided them without accusing outright. I emailed scans of the documents, highlighting the discrepancies. I'd appreciate if you could look into this, I added. Then I let silence do the work, hanging in the air like a held breath. We'll investigate promptly, Mr. Harris. This could take a few weeks. While they dug in, I didn't sit idle. Curiosity morphed into methodical research. I checked Laura's public records through online databases, easy enough with a few bucks and a search engine. A new LLC popped up, formed 2 months ago, Laura Harris Investments, LLC. Registered to a swanky apartment address in the upscale part of town. Vehicle records showed a new lease on a BMW convertible, pearl white, fully loaded. Credit reports, ethically obtained through my bank services, hinted at mounting debts, loans for business expansion. She was building something fast, stacking leverage on leverage, assuming the foundation was solid. It wasn't. Her empire was a house of cards, built on my stolen foundation. The compliance investigation moved faster than expected. 3 weeks later, Sarah called back. Mr. Harris, our review has confirmed inconsistencies, including potential unauthorized use of your signature. We've initiated an internal audit and frozen the account pending resolution. We'll need to involve regulatory bodies if fraud is substantiated. Laura called me that very afternoon, her number flashing on my cell like a warning light. I let it ring twice before answering. Tom? Did you do this? She demanded, her voice cracking, the calm confidence shattered. No, hello, no pretense. Do what? I replied mildly, though my pulse quickened. The freeze. My accounts are locked. I can't access anything. My investors are pulling out, the LLC is tanking. You reported me, didn't you? I asked questions, I said, echoing the mediator's neutral tone. That's all. If there's nothing wrong, why worry? You're ruining me, she snapped, hysteria creeping in. "You're bitter, petty. You can't stand that I was smarter than you, that I saw opportunities you never would." I thought of all the times I'd deferred to her smarts, the vacations she planned, the investments she touted, the way she dismissed my concerns with a patronizing smile. I thought of the crumpled letters, the changed passwords, the lies stacking like faulty wiring. "I'm not ruining you," I said quietly. "I'm just fixing a broken system. You pushed it too far." She hung up, but the damage was done. The audit snowballed. The brokerage, eager to avoid SEC scrutiny or lawsuits, acted decisively. They reversed the transfers where possible, clawing back funds from liquidated positions. The unsuitable investments were deemed voidable, losses allocated to the primary account holder, Laura. My pension was restored, not pristine, with some market dips eating into it, but intact enough. Around $410,000 moved back under my sole control. I locked it down with multi-factor authentication, like an elevator's emergency brake after a near miss. Laura's world crumbled under the weight. The frozen accounts triggered defaults on her loans. Investors bailed, the LLC dissolved in a flurry of legal notices. The BMW was repossessed one morning. I heard about it from a mutual friend. Her apartment lease fell through when payments bounced. What she called nothing to steal turned out to be the everything she'd gambled. Her reputation, her freedom, her facade. She showed up at the house one evening unannounced, as dusk painted the sky in bruised purples. I opened the door to find her standing there, eyes red-rimmed from crying, posture small and defeated in a rumpled coat. No makeup, hair disheveled, the confident woman I'd married reduced to this. "Tom," she whispered, voice breaking. "Can I come in? Please." I stepped aside, leading her to the kitchen. She sat at the counter, hands trembling as she accepted a glass of water. "I never meant for it to go this far," she said, tears spilling. "I was going to put it back, make it right. The investments were supposed to triple our money. For us, for Jake, for the future." "When?" I asked, leaning against the fridge, arms crossed. "Before or after you left me high and dry?" She sobbed, shoulders shaking. I got in over my head. The market turned, and I panicked. "But you have to believe me, it wasn't personal." I felt something then, not the hot rush of satisfaction I'd imagined in dark moments, but a cool closure, like sealing a repaired panel. "It was personal," I said, not angrily, just factually. "I trusted you with everything. You broke that. These are the consequences." She left after that, promising to sign whatever divorce papers came next without contest. Jake flew in a week later, hugging me tight. "Dad, I'm sorry. Mom's a mess, but you did what you had to." Months later, the house is quieter, but it feels stable for the first time in years. I've taken online courses in personal finance, managing my accounts myself. Numbers aren't relaxing like Laura claimed, but they're honest, they don't flatter, don't deceive if you read them carefully. I've even started dating again, a kind widow from my bowling league who laughs at my elevator jokes. Sometimes, friends ask if I hate Laura. I don't. Hate is loud, consuming, like a siren blaring in a shaft. What I feel is understanding, the kind that comes when you finally see the whole system laid bare, every hidden cable, every counterweight straining. She thought intelligence equaled control, that she could outsmart the mechanics of trust and law. But systems fail when pushed past limits, when shortcuts replace solid engineering. My revenge wasn't dramatic, no shouting matches, no courtroom theatrics, no tabloid headlines. It was precise, methodical, shining a light on the faults, letting gravity do the rest. The truth rose inevitably, like an elevator resuming its ascent after a stall. And when the doors opened, I stepped out alone, older, wiser, scars faded, finally in control of what I'd earned through sweat and time. the cabin by the lake? It's mine now, deed in my name, waiting for new memories. Life moves on, one floor at a time.